Welcome back to our mini-series, The Lone Screenplay Winners, where we talk about the films that solely won an Oscar for the writing categories. My name is Matthew Anderson, and today we have a former classmate of mine from Stevenson University, and I apologize I have to say this, but just for formal introduction only, and then that'll be that, Mr. Thomas Digby, a.k.a. Digby. So, how
Yo,
you doing, buddy?
yo, yo, yiggity, yo.
Yeah. I know I remembered if I know you don't like me saying that, but I just only had to do it for the formal introduction, so we'll just call you Digby for the whole show. So how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome, great. I'm really curious to know. We'll get to the movie in a moment, but I'm very curious to know why you picked this. But before we get to before I ask you that question once again, glad you're on the podcast. It's been a
Thank you
while
for having
since.
me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I should say it's not. Yeah, yeah. Like Digby and I, yeah, it's been a while since we've actually had any interaction with each other since maybe Stevenson back like 3 years ago. A lot's changed. You have now a YouTube podcast or a YouTube show of your own. And one of the we were actually right before we were discussing or hopping on for this episode, we were discussing the original song rankings list, and it was interesting to have a discussion we had about a certain recent lead actress, not lead actress, lead song winner, with Emilia Perez. So that was fun. But anyways, that's all for behind the curtains, so to speak. You're not here to have us talk about the song winners. You know, that's for another time. We'll do that maybe. So yeah, we've got a lot to discuss about this, so we'll just get started with our spoiler-filled discussion for Juno. If anyone is interested in watching this before hearing our discussion, or if you'd like to own a physical copy of the film itself, check out the links below the episode. I also list the equipment I use for the podcast as well as film books I recommend you read if you're interested in learning more about screenwriting or Oscar trivia on past ceremonies. I've joined the Amazon affiliate program and want to give you guys a heads up that some product links used are compensated affiliated links. I earn a small commission each time you click through and purchase the products listed below. And just a heads up, there's no additional cost. What you see is what you get for pricing. So, onto the film at hand. Juno was written by Diablo Cody, which was her writing debut, and was directed by Jason Reitman, who would go on to direct Up in the Air. He got 3 Oscar nominations out of that for picture, director, and screenplay. He also directed Young Adult. I think last fall, I think he directed Saturday Night as well. And you know, there's a bunch of other credits he's done. Men, Women, and Children he directed. I think Thank You for Smoking was his film he'd done prior to this as well, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so those are some of his credits. So as for the film itself, it stars Elliot Page, formerly known as Ellen Page. They've transitioned into Elliot Page. Michael Cera, Jennifer Gardner, Jason Bateman, Allison Janney, and J.K. Simmons. So yeah, so that's pretty much a whole summarization, or well, I honestly like do I like the premise of the movie. Do I really need to even give one? It's just essentially about a young pregnant teenage girl who decides to give up her child for adoption, and yeah, that's pretty much the premise of the movie. I mean, it's so damn popular. It's like, do I even need to go into like the beat by beat presentation? I mean, we don't even need to with that with the plot line. So yeah, so before I get my thoughts on what's an already immensely popular movie, even before I even started watching this for the podcast, what did you think of the film, Digby?
Well, first off, I gotta say you tricked me because when you said Juno, I thought we were talking about the song by Sabrina Carpenter. That's my favorite track off of her classic album, Short and Sweet.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, my
I
bad.
joke. I joke.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that, yeah, that's good. So yeah, so what do you think of the movie itself, Juno? Not the
Well,
songs by Sabrina Carpenter.
of course. Well, the first time I saw Juno was in high school, and it was a little bit after like I started like really getting into more popular or acclaimed movies, and I am a huge fan of the coming of age story and this was one that looked really up my alley, and I heard a lot of really good things about it over the years. And when I watched it for the first time, I liked it well enough for the most part, even though there were some parts that didn't really work. But over the years, I've continued to come back to it now and again, and it's become, I wouldn't say a personal favorite, but it is one that I often cite as one of the best screenplays and some of the best direction I've seen in a modern coming of age film, at least in the modern day.
Yeah, yeah, it was my first time I'd seen the film, actually, funny enough, even though a lot of people kept telling me, even some of my Oscar predicting buddies, they're like, Matt, you got to see Juno. You got to see Juno. How the hell have you not seen this movie? And when I created the podcast, I created the whole mini series of being like, lone screenplay winners. And I'm like, I could watch Juno now, or I could wait until I covered for my podcast. So I have fresh opinions, to be like, what do I think of the movie? And I think I looked at your letterbox last night to know what you thought of, like, based on your rating. I'm like, all right, I know exactly what Digby thinks of it, but you haven't seen mine, have you?
No,
Okay.
I didn't look at it.
Okay, good. So this will be interesting. So yeah, so I enjoyed the film overall. I did like it. How familiar are you with Jason Reitman as a director?
Oh, I am glad you asked, because this is my first Reitman film, firstly, and I'll talk about the direction sooner,
Yeah.
but in terms of his filmography, his previous film before Juno, Thank You for Smoking, is a pretty underrated comedy. Like, it's basically what if Adam McKay was actually competent and smart.
Yeah.
And strange fun fact about Thank You for Smoking, one of the executive producers of that film is Elon Musk, who also has a cameo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay.
And then later on, I saw Up in the Air, which I thought was decent. I was roped into watching Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I did not like, to be honest.
Yeah.
Last year, Saturday Night, which really surprised me. Like, there's a lot of really talented people in that movie, but overall, I thought it had its flaws, but on the whole, I thought it was entertaining. And very recently, I watched Men, Women, and Children because I've been going through a ton of Adam Sandler's filmography. And I gotta say, it is one of the worst movies I've seen in a while. It is so boring and unfocused and pretentious, and every character is a douche, and the ending is awful. And it just made me mad.
Yeah.
For so many reasons.
I never saw it, so yeah. I don't know.
Would not recommend.
Yeah, I figured. And yeah, you talk about Sandler. I'm like, gee, I wonder why people are checking out Sandler's movies. It's not like he's got an awards contender coming out this year, right?
Well, I watched it because I mainly wanted to watch the movies where he was a main character, but there is no main character in that movie. So I pretty much just wasted my time, and I'm so pissed off.
Yeah, 2 hours you're never getting back.
Oh, man.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, it seems like you've seen more Jason Reitman films than me, because I think I've only seen 2 of his movies. This and Up in the Air, which I should rewatch down the road, because I did remember liking enough, but yeah, I'll save my thoughts on that for another time. But yeah, so I guess between you and you're the Jason Reitman expert here of the two of us.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I haven't watched a Young Adult or a Tully because, to be honest, I'm not really too interested in those, even though they do look like decent films. So not a big Jason Reitman expert or even a fan, but on this recent rewatch, it really struck me with how good his direction was in this one, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah,
but I do think his best director nomination was justified. he was never going to win because obviously the Coen brothers did a bang up job with No Country for Old Men, even though I would have given it to PTA for There Will Be Blood.
We will talk about that race later on in the show. I'm gonna put that in a bottle and toss it into the later section of the show when we get to our award section. Don't worry, we will not pass over that. But yeah, as for the film itself, though, yeah, I did enjoy it. I thought it was pretty good for what it was. Definitely could see why this gained such a following, even for its time. You know, like it's very much. This was a movie that, again, it's like it was impossible not to hear about even back in 2007. Like everyone heard about this. If you didn't see it, you saw commercials for it. And I was not aware of Elliot Page, except for maybe like the X-Men movies that Elliot had done with, I think it was like Last Stand. He was in as Kitty Pryde, I think it was. But other than that, I didn't really see much of Elliot Page. I don't remember even seeing Michael Cera in much, although Michael Cera also had Superbad that year, I believe, as well. So with Jonah Hill, who was also like another, actor who's blown up into stardom. But yeah, no, I thought all the performances here were pretty good. Jason Reitman has a good balance of the comedic and dramatic moments, which we'll get into more specifically in a moment. And yeah, for this being a first-time screenplay for Diablo Cody, not bad, honestly. Like I didn't tell you this before we recorded, but I recently I've been going to the library, my local library, which I encourage everyone to do so, to support your libraries as well. Rent out your books, rent out your movies there. If they have it, awesome, great. And I noticed that we had the Hoyt Library, which isn't actually that far from my place, about maybe 10-15 minute drive. And I ended up getting, as I was scrolling through, as I was starting up the whole mini series thing, and I was like, all right, what are some movies here that are going to be at the Hoyt Library? And I saw Juno there, and I'm like, all right, cool. Juno's there on a physical media. Now I know they have it, and now I know where to get it. Except our audience can't see it, but you can, Digby. They have the screenplay in a book form. They actually have on here, I'm reading it for our audience, they have a screenplay and introduction by Diablo Cody. There's a foreword by Jason Reitman. There's some comments about the movie, cast and crew, credits, bios. But it literally has, like, I'll show you the first page here. I don't know if you could see that. But it's,
Yeah.
but it's essentially like how the screenplay was drafted. So like external Centennial Lane dusk. Juno McGrath stands on a placid street in a nondescript subdivision facing the curb. It's fall. And yeah, that's just like the first. That's literally how the screenplay starts. Because obviously, if it's not on the page, it's not on the stage, as Eddie Murphy said when he was presenting screenplay a couple years ago, whenever it was. But yeah, so it's interesting to see how Diablo Cody has, like, this was her first screenplay that she wrote. And she would go on to now become her own name in of itself, to where she would go on to do stuff like Jennifer's Body was another one she wrote. She'd also collaborated with Jason Reitman on Young Adult, and I think Tully as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but no, it's not a bad screenplay, like first time screenplay, because usually, like, us at Stevenson, I don't know if you felt this way, Digby, but us, like, when we wanted to try to get into the screenplay world, and some of us are trying, like some of our colleagues that are trying their best to get into that world of being a screenwriter or even just being a filmmaker, we wish we had this kind of screenplay that just hits with people, where it's like everyone's talking about it, you're the talk of the town, so to speak. And yeah, sure, we would like to get all the money and the awards, but it really is just like the recognition by our peers. And the fact that she was able to do it in a way that was like, okay, let's take a story about a pregnant teenager. And it's not really speaking on the voice of all pregnant teenagers, but mostly about this one individual, about Juno McGrath. Or McGuff. I think I'm
McGuff the crime dog.
McGuff. There you go. And to have such a witty screenplay like this, it very much makes sense as to why it became such a pop cultural phenomenon. I mean, unfortunately, they even parodied this in one of the stupid disaster movies, epic movies, whatever it was. I don't know if you knew about this, but yeah,
I was planning on bringing that up at some point,
yeah,
because even though this was a big moment in pop culture at the time, the parodies for this movie are awful,
yeah.
especially in disaster movie, which somehow got a few actors who would go on to become big names, like Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
can just like imagine Kanye West being like, "Yeah, this movie sucks, but that one chick, she's pretty hot. I'm gonna marry her one day."
yeah. Anyways, enough about that.
No more Kanye discussion on
Yeah,
this
no,
channel.
that is the line must be drawn here. No further.
Yeah,
um
we should probably cut that out.
yeah, no, that's fine. You're good. Yeah, so as far as Juno goes, yeah, like I said, just long answer done in a short form. I liked it overall. So anything specifically that you want to bring up about Juno that you would like to discuss, whether it's like the performances, the writing, anything that stood out to you, even in like the directing?
Well, I'll get to that in a few. We'll get to that. But first, want to bring up the studio and distributor Fox Searchlight.
Yep.
Like, first off, I miss this era of indie comedies. Like, to me, Fox Searchlight in the 2000s was what like Miramax was to the 90s and A24 is to the 2010s. And even now, even though they're kind of neck and neck with Neon.
Yep. Yeah. I,
Because like in somewhere like in the early to mid 2000s, we had an explosion of quirky comedies that were from independent studios that became household names, like Napoleon Dynamite, 500 Days of Summer, Little Miss Sunshine, which is my favorite of the bunch. But like it really wouldn't have taken off without Napoleon Dynamite breaking into the mainstream and becoming a pop culture phenomenon in its own right. Even though personally, I think Zach Braff's Garden State, which came out the same year, highly contributed to this boom of quirky indie comedies with weird visuals and dialogue and just strange but compelling performances, and of course, banging soundtracks.
I also want to say, that is one thing we should credit Searchlight for doing, but I also want to say that they had become a little bit more in the 1990s, but definitely by the 2000s, they started to become the more prestige indie dramas that got awards recognition. You had stuff like In America. Last King of Scotland was another one they had produced that got Forrest Whitaker his deserved Oscar win. Little Miss Sunshine got a Best Picture nomination, and then the year after this, they got their first Best Picture winner, which was Slumdog Millionaire, and that was a big hit as well. Like that was another film where it's like, yeah, that's a whole story in of itself. We'll go into maybe another time, but yeah, Searchlight has definitely become that staple for like these prestige awards contenders and just giving indie filmmakers a chance. Like I don't think we ever would have gotten Jason Reitman if it weren't for Searchlight. Because I just realized Thank You for Smoking was distributed by them, and that was a box office hit, despite that not being talked about as much. So yeah, and even true, yeah. Searchlight nowadays they're more focused on a little bit more. They're not doing as many films nowadays because it's mostly in the more like indie esque darling type movies they're doing.
Thanks,
But
Disney.
you still yeah, thanks Disney. Yeah, they well, yeah. That's once again that's a whole other discussion and argument we could have off air about that. But yeah, but still it's very much I do appreciate that Searchlight is still maintaining more of that creativity for independent artists and allowing them to actually tell interesting stories like Juno. Because there's no way you could have gotten this with like Paramount Pictures directly or Walt
Yeah.
Disney, or
Even
Universal.
though
You'd have to go.
even though
Go ahead.
Paramount did kind of have like their own like independent studio of their own with like Paramount Vintage, which of course distributed There Will Be
Yep.
Blood the same year.
And then after, I think the financial crash, that just crashed and burned the studio, which
Oh
is
yeah.
unfortunate. But still, I mean, it's something that I just wish more studios had. Like, it doesn't always have to be A24 and Neon and Searchlight. It's like, guys, you could actually. It's okay taking on smaller budgets. It's okay to take a risk. You don't have to go for the balloon budgets of 200 $300 million. Like, you don't need that, because last time I checked, like, right now, I mean, granted, it's like it just opened this past weekend as we're recording, but like Tron Ares made like what 60 million worldwide, and the budget was 180, and it's like, I don't know, maybe you should use that money for a smaller movie. Oh yeah, let's do another Snow White remake. It's like, no, you don't need this much money. Like, you could just
Okay.
do, I don't know. Like, you could just do just finance independent filmmakers out there and take a chance
Yeah,
on them.
we don't need to open that can of worms with Snow White and
Yeah.
Tron
Yeah,
Ares.
that's all I had to say about that. So yeah, I'm done bitching and moaning. So anyways, yeah. So anything else you want to bring up? Because I have plenty of notes on Juno itself I'd like to bring up, but I'll let you go first.
Well, as we mentioned before, Diablo Cody this was her first screenplay, right?
Yeah, it's her first screenplay.
And
And yeah,
she won like instantly, which is very surprising. I think Juno and I think there was another one, Michael Clayton. I think those were the only two
yep,
Best Picture nominees nominated for Best Screenplay. Even though personally, out of the five, I would have given it to Ratatouille. Which another thing, if the Academy expanded their number of nominees earlier, then Ratatouille would have been nominated for Best Picture. Just saying.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it is
easily.
strange
Yeah,
that Juno ended up winning and that it even got nominated for Best Picture to begin with, because it's not the kind of movie that normally gets nominated. Like the last like very recent movie, the most recent coming of age movie that I can think of that managed to sneak its way into Best Picture was probably Lady Bird back in 2017.
yeah, but I will say, yeah, Lady Bird still got into precursors here and there as well. I mean, this did too, for sure. But I do think though that Juno, it captured a bit of a zeitgeist, because when you watch the movie and you're thinking to yourself, oh, okay, it's about a teenage pregnant, girl, person, going through their life and making sure, are they going to get an abortion, or are they going to give it up for adoption? And you watch the movie, and it really is just a slice of life, in a way. And on top of that, you have parents like J.K. Simmons and Allison Janney, who plays the stepmom, who are very, not necessarily, like, yeah, that's awesome, they got pregnant. It's just more like, oh, okay. And they realize that they don't want to put Juno up to any more stress by being angry with her. It's like, okay, well, it happened. It happened. There's not much else we could do about it, except, knowing what you want to do with the child. Do you want to give it up for adoption, like I said, or do something else? And even having, like, this weird dialogue, very quirky dialogue from Diablo Cody's signature, where like one scene, for example, where Juno talks with her buddy on the hamburger phone, um saying, I'm gonna go to women now because they
Just
help
because they
women
help
now.
women now.
Yeah, which I thought that was a really good line. And even other lines like, yeah, you want to talk about cringe moments where during the narration from Juno, she talks about how there was like a girl who's obsessed with like much older teacher at the school who's,
Oh yeah,
bigger.
her best friend Leah.
Was that who it was? Okay.
I
Um,
love Woody Allen.
yeah, because I'm watching it like, oh, like,
Yeah, like
yeah, that is
it
not
is
aged well.
it is refreshing though to see uh, a high school outcast main character having one of her best friends be a cheerleader. That's I've never seen. I don't think I've ever seen that in a movie or a coming of age movie before.
Yeah, because usually you have the cheerleader be the bitchy.
Yeah, and she's not. She's
Yeah,
actually really cool.
she's actually, and honestly, she has some of the more funnier moments in the movie, especially when the father of Juno's like, "Who's the father?" Polly Bleeker. Polly Bleeker. I didn't know he had it in him, and she's like, "I know, right?" So that was good. Did you recognize that actress though, who played
I
the friend?
did not, though. I know it's Olivia Thirlby. I'm sorry if
Yeah,
I mispronounced that,
she
but
was in
I don't think I've seen her in anything else.
she was in Oppenheimer.
Well, everyone was in Oppenheimer, but
Yeah,
who was she?
she was the one. Well, there's other women on the team, but she was one of the main women on the team who showed up in like a couple scenes here and there. Especially with I can't remember. They were talking about the use of men and women, the men and women system and how it would react to the bomb. It's like a very quick scene in the movie, but she's in it. But yeah, like you're right, every actor is in Oppenheimer. So yeah, I wouldn't be that surprised. If people didn't know that. I'm looking through here to see if there's else. But yeah, no, but like so a very quirky film like this, the screenplay by Diablo Cody, and even a good balance of tone between the comedy side and drama from Jason Reitman, and again, really good performances from everyone. Elliot Page is really good in the film. Like he definitely deserved the Oscar nomination for sure. And it was also nice to see J.K. Simmons in the movie, who I think has been in almost every single Jason Reitman film known to man. He might have missed a couple here, and I don't think he was there for the Ghostbusters movies.
He
Um,
dodged a bullet.
yeah, he dodged like a major bullet on that one. Maybe he was off doing Whiplash or being the Ricardos. I don't know. But no, but it was nice to see him show up, and he's got a couple of great scenes in the film, particularly with the father daughter moment they have at the dinner table later on in the film after Juno goes through her existential crisis as well. I'm
Mm,
Yeah.
well, not really an existential crisis, more of a like sort of falling out with
There you go.
one of the adoptive parents, which we'll get to Mark and Vanessa pretty soon.
Yeah.
But J.K. Simmons, I I like calling him my favorite actor, even though it's not entirely set in stone. Like it changes very often, but like he did give one of my favorite performances of all time in Whiplash, and I love him in other stuff like Spider Man, obviously. But I also really like his casual roles, like the one in this movie. Like as you mentioned before, the dinner table scene that was a very hard hitting scene, and he also has a few funny little lines here and there, like "I'm gonna punch that Bleecker kid in the wiener next time I see him."
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, and then when he does meet him in person for the first time, he just pats him on the shoulders, and he just walks out of the emergency room. So that was good. Um, but yeah, and even I'm pretty sure Jason Reitman also helped executive produce Whiplash, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I know that the two of them.
Maybe,
I know that.
maybe,
Oh,
maybe it was the short film.
it might have
I
been, but I know Jason Reitman's production company is on Whiplash. I know that for a fact.
right.
So he must have helped something out with the financing on that. I don't know, but yeah, no, I could definitely see why Reitman always goes to him. He's his go-to guy to be like, I want you to be in my next movie. Even showing up in like a very brief moment in Up in the Air, where he plays a father who realizes he just lost his job, and Michael Clayton, aka George Clooney, says to him, "Well, why don't you go back to doing something you love? Go to be a culinary, artist. Be a cook and do it for your kids." And yeah, that was a good moment from J.K. Simmons and felt believable. But yeah, you're right though. Like he, as great as he is in those more iconic films like Spider-Man and Whiplash, it really is his more down to earth ordinary characters that are much more interesting, because then you really see his dramatic chops. And I'm pretty sure he was on Law and Order, if I'm not mistaken, or one of the crime shows as well. But
I wouldn't know.
and
I never watched a single episode of Law and Order.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, but yeah, no, he's pretty good on them. Yeah. So you were mentioning about Mark and who was the other person Jennifer Garner played?
Vanessa.
Vanessa. So anything you want to bring up about them?
I will say one of my biggest issues with the film is that Vanessa, played by Jennifer Garner, we don't really get to know much about her. She seems very one note in a lot of ways. Like the most we know about her is that she really wants to be a mother, but she's never had the opportunity. And she has really good scenes, like the one in the mall where
Mm-hmm.
she's feeling like the baby inside Juno for the first time. Like that was pretty powerful for the most part. But like most of her like character moments are her just being quietly annoyed at her husband being immature, which Jason Bateman is not one of my favorite actors, and I
Oh.
don't think he gives a great performance in this, but he pulls off the character very well, better than most people would expect. Like one of my favorite little directorial touches in the film is the first time Juno and her dad meet the parents. Like Mark is dressed up very, very nice, almost like Mr. Rogers. But like as the film goes on and as we see more of him, his clothing becomes more loose and more
Ah,
childish. So I
nice.
really love that detail.
I didn't even know. Good on you, Digby. You called out the subtlety from Jason. I didn't even notice that actually. I honestly didn't know. It's just like, yeah, okay, it's very much a Jason Bateman role. Like he's good in the movie. I do like him as an actor, but he's not one where I'm expecting like a transformative performance. I'm expecting a solid enough performance from him. But yeah, no, he was good in this. And yeah, Jennifer Garner's also good too. Um yeah. So, and I did also like the fact that even though Juno and the Jennifer Gardner character, they don't have a whole lot of scenes together on their own, except for maybe the mall scene and maybe a little bit of the interaction at the house. There is a connection there to those two characters, and even when Juno writes to the character to Jennifer's character saying, I'm still in it if you're still in it in having this baby. And I like that we never get to see that what was on the note until the very end of the movie until it's hung up on the wall, and I thought that was nice. That was really good. Yeah, but yeah, no, I do agree though that she's not really given much of a like what exactly is her job, so to speak, of like
Because like we know Mark's job, we just don't know Vanessa's job.
yeah, and I don't know. I do wonder if that was in the more tiny bits of like we don't really need that kind of I don't know. Maybe it's just that's what it was from the beginning of like we don't really need to know what her job is. I'm assuming maybe selling houses. I don't know. Real estate agent. I don't know, but I could be wrong. But yeah. But yeah, no. But other than that, I'm trying to think of other. I'm looking. Actually, I'm looking through my notes.
I should say it would probably be a good segue to like talk about the dynamic between Juno and Mark because that's a pretty big plot point. Like especially when she first meets Mark and Vanessa.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts on that? Because I was a little bit weirded out by that. I'm not gonna lie.
So like it kickstarts as soon as Juno sees the Les Paul guitar in his room,
Yeah.
which kickstarts like a casual conversation about like the best of rock music.
Mm-hmm.
And like their conversations about what is real music and like talking about old horror films, like it is very emblematic of like the hipster teens who like are into like that obscure stuff, and it kind of made me cringe in a few ways, but like it was very fitting for the tone they were going for.
Sure.
Like for one, I highly disagree that the Sonic Youth cover of that one Carpenter song is superior.
That's funny. I wouldn't really know. I know. When they mentioned the Carpenters, I'm like, I've heard them. I don't really know much about this music though. I might have heard the song before, but yeah. Um, but yeah. I mean, it does work for the moment of what it's trying to convey in terms of the tone. of the movie, and even again trying to speak into the mind of this specific person. Like I said, I was a little bit like, what's going, like when they started slow dancing to the song, and I'm like, what's
Oh,
going on here, guys? Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Before that, like I interpreted like the beginning of this relationship through Juno's perspective as just a normal friendship. Uh, like later on, she says to her stepmom, played very well by Allison Janney, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
She tells her, so what if he's married? I can have friends who are married. So like, yeah, she sees it as like just a normal friendship, and she's more focused on like the couple like as one unit, like to make sure that Mark and Vanessa are the perfect fit for the baby. But that's not how he interprets it. He interprets it more as like an opportunity for him to like stay youthful and to not have to grow up. So like when he reveals that he's leaving Vanessa, that is a perfectly valid point for her to just ditch them mostly altogether until, like you said, that note.
What were your thoughts actually on Michael Cera's character? Because
So, like you brought up earlier, this movie came out the same year as Superbad.
yes.
And personally, I thought he gave a much more compelling performance in that movie, not only because he was one of the two main characters, but like I thought he had like a lot more energy and a lot more comedic edge to it. Like in this one, it's textbook Michael Cera awkwardness. Like,
Yeah.
have you smelled her? Have you smelled Katrina? Her house smells like soup.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite lines.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean he works fine in the role. Like he's not really required to do any Shakespeare kind of
Because
work.
like I love his character though. I love like how like committed he is to like staying together with Juno, even though she's kind of like distancing herself from him, even though she does want to like keep a keep a relationship with him, even though it's not really romantic, even though it becomes romantic like near the climax,
Mhm.
which I thought was very well developed, especially with the scene of her leaving all those orange Tic Tacs in his
Yeah,
mailbox.
that was good.
Another really quirky moment.
Yeah.
But like personally, I prefer Michael Cera when like he's in a lot more energetic situations or he's adding a lot more energy to his performance, like Scott Pilgrim or really underrated example Dream Scenario
Dreams.
and Barbie.
Oh yeah, he was in Dreams with Nick Cage, right?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, and this year's The Phoenician Scheme.
Oh yeah. He. You know what? He wasn't that bad. Yeah, I actually thought he fit perfectly within that world of Wes Anderson. So yeah, that's okay. All right. Yeah, you named a few. Then I'm like, yeah, he's good
Unbelievable,
in.
unbelievable. That was his first Wes Anderson film.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't really have much else. Like,
I
like I'm
mean,
looking. You go
the
ahead. Sorry.
tracksuit, the tracksuit is iconic, and like
Yeah.
love the shots, like the quote unquote running gag because it's a bunch of joggers.
Yeah.
Like I love how they keep showing up. And the tracksuit is iconic with its colors and the hoodie and the shorts and the pork swords line.
Yeah, pork swords. Yeah, that was a good line. That was good. Yeah, like I said, I don't really have much else to say in terms of like other stuff to add to the Juno conversation itself outside of, again, for as much as the film is relying on comedic tones and comedic moments and a quirkier tone, it it does have a level of maturity to its storytelling, especially with how Pleaker reacts to Juno being pregnant. Like instantly, you knew right then and there that it was in safe hands. At least I knew personally that this was going to be done by someone who was a competent filmmaker who had a sense of confidence in themselves in telling a mature story without having it be so reliant on just being a quirk fest like many of the haters have call this as. And it is a really quirky movie, but it's just half of the movie, I would say.
Yeah, because the first 10 minutes, as actually just the first act in general, which I love, I think it's the highlight of the entire movie, is loaded with quirkiness. And
Yeah.
like the dialogue, I think, is where the screenplay really shines. But like I can see people getting fed up with like the really late 2000s lingo, like honest to blog, totally boss, faux shiz, wizard,
Yeah.
your ego is prego.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't one etchy sketch you can't
This is
undoodle.
one doodle you can't be undid, skillet.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, there it is.
Um,
Yeah, from Rainn Wilson.
that was
Yeah.
nice of them to give Dwight a cameo.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I love that. It would have been hilarious if they got him, John Krasinski, and then Steve Carell all together. But I guess you can only afford one Office co-star, so why not him? So, but yeah. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the movie personally. Do you have any other final thoughts or any other notes you want to bring up?
Um, hmm. I guess I do want to bring up the clinic scene though. That was a
Okay.
big highlight. Like personally, I think this movie tackles like the subjects of like Planned Parenthood and abortion very well. Like it's a very touchy topic, but in the movie they handle it so casually, even with like the quirky dialogue, because like the scene opens with like this teenage girl like holding a protest sign. You know, she's pro-life, and then she sees Juno, and they have like a casual conversation, even with quirky lines like "I am a kraken from the sea."
Yeah, that was handled
Like
with
they
a
they
lot of
don't
maturity.
villainize her in any way.
No, they really don't.
It would have
Yeah.
been really easy,
Oh,
but I,
definitely.
I appreciate that they didn't do that. And one funny thing that's always stood out to me is the one thing that keeps Juno from going through with the abortion is Su Chin, her classmate, telling her that her baby has fingernails.
Yeah, that was good.
And then that leads into the scene like where like she looks at
With
everyone
fingernails.
in the office, like everyone's fingernails, and like that's a very well edited scene. Like
Yeah, yeah, it's good.
I would say overall the film is competently edited, even though I don't remember much of it as much as the direction and the writing.
Yeah, like it does its job with the editing. But yeah, we'll definitely get to that in the award section in just a moment. But yeah, overall, yeah, I it sounds like um Digby hated the film. He thinks it's the worst film of all time. No, I'm kidding with you. um but no, it sounds to me like you really this really spoke to you in ways that I'm very happy that you were able to be like, hey Matt, watch this movie. Let's watch this for the show. And I'm like, all right, cool, let's
Mm,
do it.
I wouldn't say it spoke to me though. Like if it's not a personal like movie that hit me like in a lot of ways like other films, other coming of age films have, especially like during this era. Like back in high school, I was purely team Napoleon Dynamite because like that one just stood out to me a lot more for its characters and its world and its dialogue. And as an adult, Little Miss Sunshine is my favorite of the big Searchlight movies of the 2000s, purely for its family dynamic, but also its storytelling, its performances, and its filmmaking. And also because Bryan Cranston and Dean Norris cameo.
Didn't wasn't Napoleon Dynamite by Searchlight?
I mean, yeah, it was also Paramount and MTV Films. But
Yeah,
like I remember seeing Fox Searchlight like at the beginning of the movie.
nice. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. So yeah. We both like this. I would definitely recommend this for sure for people who haven't seen it. I mean, you're at the point now where it's like we've already spoiled like good chunks of the movie. It's like why? Okay. You had your warning. You went into it, so that's on you guys, audience, not Digby. So yeah, so let's just jump right into our awards discussion. Before we do, I'm going to give a little bit of a preamble with the award section. So Juno premiered at the Telluride Film Festival and was also screened at the Toronto International Film Festival, where it received a standing ovation that even film critic Roger Ebert pointed out at the time he had never heard one that was as loud, long, and warm as this one got. Because of the positive reception, the film's release date was changed to being given a limited theatrical run first, as opposed to opening nationwide day one. And by the time it opened everywhere, it made back its $6.5 million production budget from just its limited run alone. It not only became Searchlight's first film to gross over 100 million at the box office, but it became the highest grossing movie of the Best Picture nominees that year, making an estimated 232.4 million worldwide. That in of itself tells me that this was, like I said earlier in the episode, this has been like a huge cultural phenomenon for its time for such a low indie darling, a low budget independent darling, I should say. So yeah, and as for the awards go, it would go on to get 3 Golden Globe nominations, 6 Critics' Choice nominations, which won 2 for comedy and screenplay, 2 BAFTA nominations, 4 Independent Spirit Awards, which won, I'm pretty sure it won all of its categories except director. It won picture, screenplay, and, well, first time screenplay, and then lead actress for Elliot Page. Got a Producers Guild nomination, Screen Actors Guild nomination for Elliot Page and lead actress, a WGA nomination for original screenplay, which it won the category for, as well as 4 Academy Award nominations for picture, director, lead actress, and original screenplay. And in the original screenplay category, it went up against, we already mentioned Ratatouille, Michael Clayton, Lars and the Real Girl, which I already covered with Megan Laux on the episode last year, or on the show last year. So check out that episode for our thoughts on that. And The Savages, which was another Searchlight production film, which I had no idea that was the Searchlight production until I was watching the DVD for Juno and I got the trailer that popped up for it. So why do you think this managed to win just screenplay? Like what happened with this whole awards race with Juno?
Well, first off, I totally forgot that Lars and the Real Girl was nominated in that category. Like, it's shocking to me. Like, that's another movie I actually really like. It is flawed in a few areas, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it is very well made. And Ryan Gosling gives one of his most underappreciated performances, in my opinion. But like, I
Definitely.
think the big reason, one of the big reasons why I think this took home Best Original Screenplay was obviously it was nominated for Best Picture, but like the only other Best Picture nominee in that category was Michael Clayton. And I think this movie specifically, like, yeah, it was very popular and very quoted, but like I think one big contributor was its dialogue and its characters and the slice of life nature, even though it does have a linear plot.
Yeah, and again, that being such a cultural impact to society, but definitely of its time for sure. It was very much like the talk of the town, so to speak. And if it was going to be any kind of win that film was going to get, it was going to be screenplay, because we'll get into picture and director in just a moment, but the cards weren't really in the field for that. In fact, Jason Reitman, he didn't even get in at Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, BAFTAs, or Directors Guild for a director nomination. The only kind of major precursor he got, outside of some of the critics push that they went for it, probably Independent Spirit Award nomination for director. That's it. Like everything else, like Jason Reitman didn't get in anywhere else. Um, Elliot Page wasn't really in the running for lead actress, which I'll get to that in just a moment. What happened there? But yeah, and I'm even looking too. Michael Clayton only made like 93 million worldwide. So between the two of them, it's like it's pretty clear Juno was the most talked of the town, even though Michael Clayton has gotten a
Yeah,
resurgence through internet, social media stuff. I don't know if you noticed that over the last
really,
couple
because
years.
I've never seen Michael Clayton, so I have no idea what it's really about aside from George Clooney.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it would have been a really like basic Oscars move for them to give Best Original Screenplay to a movie like Michael Clayton, but I do
Yep.
appreciate them giving it to Diablo Cody in the end.
Well, and even when you look at Michael Clayton, it got, I think, 7 nominations, and it got in for 3 acting nominations. So it showed you, and it was like 3 acting nominations: picture, director, screenplay, and score. So it showed that Michael Clayton did have support behind it. But I guess they were like, we respect it enough, but we're not head over heels with it. And it, if anything, it allowed supporting actress, because that field was so undivided that year. Like, they were, I don't know if you knew about this, Digby, but supporting actress that year was so all over the place, where it's like Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, SAG, and BAFTA just went their own way. And then the Oscars just said, all right, screw it. Let's go with the one that is a Best Picture nominee and isn't Saoirse Ronan for Atonement. Let's go with Tilda Swinton for Michael Clayton. And she became the sole representative win for that movie. Otherwise, it just would have went home with nothing. Um, but yeah, it's just, you're right though. Yeah, Michael Clayton, it totally would have been the typical screenplay winner if Juno weren't here. But I also do think it helped that Juno, outside of having such a cultural lasting power, or again the talk of the town, it won everything from the precursors. It won Critics' Choice, the BAFTA, Writers Guild. It won Independent Spirit Award first time, which it's not really that much of a big deal. I mean, we just saw this last season a Real Pain win the Independent Spirit Award for screenplay, but it didn't matter. It's just like, okay, and it's like that does help you a little bit, but it's not going to be the one that's like, ooh, this is why it's winning the category at the Oscars. It's like, okay, it's whatever. But the only thing it lost was Golden Globes, which was, it lost to There Will Be, not There Will Be Blood. Sorry, my bad. Wrong movie. No Country for Old Men. Yeah. Do you want to get into the debate on
Like,
director?
while before we do that, like while
Yeah.
we're on the subject of screenplay, like it was really adapted screenplays year to shine, because like you were right on the money of Juno like leaving like a huge cultural impact at the time, and in a way No Country for Old Men did the same. But looking back, it's it's insane how There Will Be Blood is now talked about in the same breath as Citizen Kane and The Godfather, and yet it didn't win Best Picture, Director, or Adapted Screenplay.
Well, I think the problem that There Will Be Blood ran into, which as we're recording, it's no longer Paul Thomas Anderson's highest grossing movie. It's One Battle After Another. We'll see
Oh,
how that
really?
turns. Yeah, right now it's at 138 million worldwide.
Because like I thought One Battle After Another flopped.
Well, yeah, we're still waiting on other releases. I know China's getting it later on in the week, so we'll see how it turns out. Maybe maybe it does become a flop, but like for PTA standards, it's currently the highest grossing movie of his, which is good. Um, but yeah, but yeah, There Will Be Blood. It did make, I think it was like 76 million on a budget of 25 million. Um, but yeah, so what was I going to say? So yeah, No Country for Old Men, I think was just kind of a slam dunk winner for adapted. I was even looking at the precursors for it. It won. It did lose Critics' Choice to Juno, but they didn't have their own separate original and adapted. They just had just like screenplay. That was it, like best writer category. And then Golden Globes, it won. It won the Writers Guild Award, the University of Southern California Scripter Award, which is a legit award. Don't worry. Um, and it lost, and it did lose the BAFTA to The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, but it, it wasn't the Best Picture nominee at the Oscars, so it really didn't matter. So the Coens were going to win adapted screenplay. Picture was a foregone conclusion because it had won the Producers Guild Prize, and it won the SAG Ensemble Prize, which, funny enough, it's one of the few times, maybe the only time I could think of on the top of my head, where we had a Best Picture nominee. Like, it was the one Best Picture nominee that made it into the SAG Ensemble lineup, which was a whole weird year in of itself. And yeah, that's a whole going down the rabbit hole situation we can get into with ourselves with that conversation. Um, and I think with director, though, the problem that I think Paul Thomas Anderson had, and I didn't even know about this until recently, and I don't know if you knew about this either, Digby. I found out that at the time, uh, Paul Thomas Anderson technically burned some of his bridges all the way back with Magnolia. where Magnolia, it's still being talked about as like one of the best movies of 1990 for sure. And
1990.
well, yeah, no, I'm sorry, 1999. I'm sorry, I'm getting my dates mixed up. And a lot of us are still talking about Magnolia, especially when it comes to Paul Thomas Anderson's new release of One Battle After Another. But I had discovered that he was in a bit of a frenzy with New Line Cinema in regards to how much creativity he had on it, because he was promised from the get-go he was going to get Final Cut, and he said, okay, if I get Final Cut, I get Final Cut of the movie. And it bombed at the box office. And then he does his next movie, which was Punch Drunk Love, with I think it was Columbia Pictures. He did with New Line Cinema as well. And they're like, all right, fine, we'll let you do this one sideload movie. It's not like it's going to bomb at all. And then it did. And he hadn't made a movie since 2002. So, it took him a while to get financing done for There Will Be Blood. And I do wonder if a little bit of his ego was a turnoff for some of these voters, where it's like, we don't want to give you the prize, and it's not really your coronation yet for our grand thing, because it's been a recent thing where a filmmaker will just win the trifecta, and it's just their coronation of like, all right, it's your time, give it to them in all the categories, like we just saw with Sean Baker with Anora, and again with the Coen brothers on picture, director, and screenplay. And I also do think, though, that No Country for Old Men in of itself was a more accessible movie compared to There Will Be Blood, even though they are very much spoken as like some of the best movies of that decade, easily. But if you try putting someone to have someone watch No Country for Old Men, it would be a little bit more digestible for them to get through than There Will Be Blood. Because I do know some people who are not a fan of There Will Be Blood, even decades later. They're like, yep, still not a fan. Even though Day-Lewis gives a great performance, I'm just not into it for whatever reason. So those are some of my theories as to why I don't think Paul Thomas Anderson, won director to begin with. And I think he even missed Critics' Choice and Golden Globes for director, which is really weird.
Like I did not know that at all.
Yeah,
Like
about his
like and
falling out.
and like it's shocking to me that the Academy would be turned off by someone having a huge ego. Like, do they know what group they're a part of?
I know, right? Yeah, it's like you realize this is what directors and actors have. But I guess it's just the fact that it's just like one of many factors that results in a certain person or film to win said category. I mean, I hate to bring up an old wound, and I'm going to bring it up again.
Oh no.
Kenneth Branagh for Belfast.
I
I
was gonna
know.
bring that up very soon. Like
Yeah,
I was gonna bring up the Juno cast reunion at that year's ceremony.
yeah, like him winning screenplay for Belfast. I just think it was the fact that that film was it was in such a weak year, and there was already enough divided opinions amongst the Academy on Don't Look Up and Licorice Pizza. It also didn't help that I mentioned this on the Belfast episode too, that like those two films just did not have a festival run, whereas Belfast did, and it projected itself to the Oscar. And it's like, all right, we want to give Branagh his win. We can't give it to him in director and picture because it's not really going to happen there, and it's not that strong. So I guess we'll give it to him for screenplay. So yeah, I just feel like that was part of the reason why. It's just that's an example of like your time isn't, it's not here yet. Down the road maybe, but just not now. And it happens with some of these filmmakers. Like we've seen legendary filmmakers who have gotten nominated numerous times and they went to their grave without an Oscar. Robert Altman, David Lynch, are some of the few I can think of on the top of my head. So it happens. It's just a whole culmination of things as to why certain career narratives work and why certain career narratives don't.
Yeah, going back to No Country for Old Men, I guess I can kind of picture like how it would be a very accessible film to win, but at the same time, I don't really see it because it is a very bold film and
Mhm.
very experimental in a few ways. Like it doesn't have a score,
And it's using a lot more of like sound, like the sound ambience to it, and
and
it,
there's like limited locations.
Yeah, and yet it's still a really tense thriller. Like it's still
Yeah,
really good for what the Coen brothers. I'm not even the biggest Coen brothers guy out there,
yeah, especially
Digby.
with their more recent output.
Yeah, but even before, I've been on the record before saying I'm not the biggest fan of Fargo from when I last saw it. But even I have to admit I was impressed with No Country for Old Men. Like I just rewatched it earlier this year and I bumped it up to a 10. So it kind of shows you like, wow, this really is like like the fact that I'm not even their biggest fan and I still enjoyed No Country for Old Men just as much as any Coen Brothers diehard fan is. Really shows you how good the movie was.
And yeah, if it wasn't There Will Be Blood, it was definitely going to be No Country for Old Men
Yeah. Oh yeah.
because Juno doesn't really scream Best Picture winner or Michael
No.
Clayton or Atonement.
Well, Atonement ran into two problems. It missed director and it missed editing. Usually, if you have those two, you're probably not going to win picture. You might win in other categories, and I'll talk about Atonement on my Patreon podcast down the road, maybe if anyone's interested in doing that discussion. But yeah, that wasn't going to win. Juno, you're right. It was just the one category it was going to win was screenplay, and that was it. I do want to ask, since you aren't I'm probably a little bit more Oscar history versed, or I but between the two of us. But I'm curious to know: do you know why Elliot Page did not win lead actress?
Um, huh. Well, first off, just to clarify, was was he the only actor in a Best Picture nominee in that category?
Yes.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it makes sense to me why he didn't win because even though Juno is the most iconic of all those characters, uh, the real winner, I can't pronounce her name.
Marion Cotillard.
Marion Cotillard. There it is. From Le Vion Rose, which I haven't seen before, but it looks like a very Oscar performance. So
Man.
I can see why Elliot Page didn't win in the end.
Well, I will say, um, I I'm curious to know what you think of the movie because I will tell you this right now: Levine Rose as a movie, it's fine, but I thought she delivered in terms of recent musician biopic performances, and I'm sick to death of this. I mentioned this even on the Straight Outta Compton episode. I'm sick and tired of these musician biopics with like Bohemian Rhapsody, Elvis, A Complete Unknown. I'm just like, I'm done with
Springsteen,
it. Yeah, we're getting that pretty soon.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, Michael Jackson. Ugh, yeah, that's the whole thing. Um, I'm not bullshitting when I say this, Digby. Marion Cotillard might be giving one of the best musician biopic performances I've seen
And
ever.
like I'm inclined to believe that even though I haven't seen the movie and I don't really know much about the artist she portrays,
Edith Piaf.
Edith Piaf. I only know her from the song in Inception, which Elliot Page was also in.
Yeah, yeah. L.A. Page and Marion Cotillard. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Wow. But yeah, no. But essentially, lead actress. I mean, just to give you the summarized version of what happened there, it was the race between the two. Was Julie Christie going to win her second Oscar, or they were going with, were they going to go with Marion Cotillard for Olivia and Rose? And in the end, even though they split up precursors, like Julie Christie won Golden Globe drama, Critics' Choice, and SAG, Marion Cotillard won the Golden Globe comedy musical category and the BAFTA. And it helped that Marion Cotillard had a makeup win for the Oscars because she is giving a transformative performance for that role. And yeah, she is amazing in that film. And I've seen Julie Christie and Away from Her. She's fine. I mean, if nothing else, I do recommend people watching Away from Her, if nothing else, to see another Sarah Polley directed movie who had recently just won for Women Talking.
Oh right.
Um and yeah, like I think Julie Christie does a good job in the film, and I can definitely see why she got the nomination for that. But I personally was just more impressed with what Marion Cotillard did in Livia and Rose. Again, it still follows the same pratfalls of a musician biopic movie would do, but her performance and really her transformation into that character was so believable. And even to the point where her character, in real life, she suffered from I think she had jaundice later on in her role in her life, I should say, for Edith Piaf. And the way that she plays her physically and even the makeup work is fantastic. It reminded me a lot of someone I knew from my own family who would, when I was told by my dad, oh yeah, he knew someone who would, gone through like liver damage because of all the alcohol and smoking. And I'm like immediately when I saw her in that performance, I'm like, this really, this really touched me. Like this really was like, wow, I'm kind of moved. Like I'm actually seeing something like this unfold. And yeah, it's exactly what I like, that kind of behavior someone would have with liver damage would would go through from, again, the stories I'd been told. But yeah, she was fantastic and totally earned the Oscar. And I don't know if you saw her Oscar winning clip, but Kate Blanchett was more.
Oh, I didn't watch the speech, but I did see Kate Blanchett's reaction.
Yeah, like I love that she's more excited that she lost to Marion Cotillard than her winning the damn
Yeah,
Oscar.
it reminds me of Stephanie Shu's reaction to Jamie Lee Curtis winning,
Yeah.
and then looking over to Angela Bassett.
Yeah. Then she sees, she's kind of pissed, like, okay, it happened. Okay. Um, but yeah, but no, I like I said, I don't expect everyone to love Vivian Rose as a movie, but Marion totally fucking earned it. She earned the Oscar, just hands down. Like, yeah, oh god, she's so great in that movie. And what's even funny too is it's a lip sync performance for sure from the musical section, and yet she still believably portrays it well, despite that. Of course, yeah, the voice isn't her own, but she's just so fucking good in that role. Ah, man. To the point where she was so good that the next day after I saw that, I had to go see Elvis in the theater, and it's like, all right, well, yeah, it's like very night and day. It's like Butler's fine in the role, but it's like you're nothing compared to Marion Cotillard and Vivian Rose. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I said all I need to say about the awards prospects. But I would like to check out some more of Jason Reitman's other films. Thank You for Smoking. I will definitely watch down the road. Up in the Air, I would like to revisit. And I might check out Saturday Night. I don't know if I'll have the
Saturday
time.
Night, great cast.
Yeah.
Gabriel LaBelle, Cooper Hoffman, who I really hope takes off, because like yeah, Licorice Pizza, he gave a really good performance, but like with Saturday Night and most recently The Long Walk, he's showing
Yeah.
signs of becoming a more prominent actor in the indie scene.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, I wish the best of luck to Cooper Hoffman. And yeah, so we'll see how everything turns out for him. But yeah, other than that, happy that this won the screenplay Oscar, and yeah, just like I said, just good job overall. I'm really proud, like I said, to discuss this for the podcast. And yeah, I don't really have much else to add personally. So outside of that, so that'll be it for our show. Before we officially sign off, I'd like to once again thank you again, Digby, for coming on the show to discuss the film Juno.
Well, thank you
Is
for having me.
Yeah, sure, anytime. Is there anything you'd like to plug in on where listeners could follow you along after the show is
Uh,
done?
I have a YouTube channel at Village Digby. I do YouTube hoops and AMVs, but I also have been trying to branch out into long form content. I have a video on ranking every Best Original Song winner at the Oscars and every song in The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check out the
So
Nightmare
little
one.
little plug for a spooky season.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to that. Yeah, definitely check out his channel. Yeah, and I told you off air, and I'll say it again. I really loved your original song ranking video. That was really good, and I encourage everyone to follow it. If nothing else, just to get a another man's opinion on the original song winners list, because we've had a lot of strange ones. I will say over the years. Well, definitely this last season. But yeah, but
Justice for Will and Harper. That should have been nominated.
yeah. Yeah. Was that this past season?
It was yeah, I think it was.
Okay.
It was I think it was nominated at the Golden Globes. I forgot, but yeah, it got snubbed
Man.
along with so many other movies. Challengers.
Yeah, challengers. Yeah, what a shame. Oh well. But yeah, no, check out his channel if you can. And yeah, like I said, thanks again for coming on the show. We will likely, I may actually have you come back on once again. Probably next year though, but we'll see how scheduling is down the road because I'm a bit of a hectic uh uh, uh schedule right now as we speak for the next coming months. So yeah. So as for myself, you could follow me and the show through Linktree under at Matthew995, where you could follow along on all my social media accounts such as Twitter, Letterboxd. You'll see the list there. On the same side, I provided link where you can listen to more episodes of the show through Spotify and YouTube. We also have a Patreon page where you can check out more bonus episodes on After Hours, and membership is only $3 a month. As of this recording, we just dropped the episode for Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. We had Jeffrey Carr on for that episode, which is another 2007 film. We had a lot to say about that in terms of the film itself, and also how the hell it managed to win the Lone Production Design win itself, which was really interesting. Like, if you thought this was strange for the original screenplay category, wait till you hear what happened down there. So, yeah, so check us out. $3 a month for membership. That money is not only there to support the podcast itself, but is also there to support me as an artist. So yeah. So if you're not able to afford the membership, totally understand. Just at bare minimum, just pass the word along to anyone who is interested in hearing more of my bonus episodes of the show. And like I said before, this will be our last episode for the year. Uh, it's becoming a bit of a hectic schedule for me so far. So I definitely will come back to this main channel next year. Maybe after the Oscars, we might do more of the lone screenplay winner and nominee stuff, but I will be focusing mostly on Patreon episodes. We'll be trying to push out for the next coming months. And yeah, then there's plenty of episodes and guests I have coming on over the next coming days that I'm really excited to share with you all. So, yeah, so that'll be that. In the meantime, we hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and we hope to see you at the movies. Take care, guys.